So, before we start saying anything else, let's get into this.
Yes. I'm here for it.
Actually, story time. Okay. So because other people did such a good job, the best author of this is God. So I literally...
That was good.
Guys, I printed it out.
Okay, that was good.
For reading.
Everyone get your Bibles out.
Yeah, so I have a lot of
church.
I know. I have a lot of notes on here. I don't know when I'm actually going to go through them.
Okay.
Let's see how this goes.
Yeah, let's do it.
I can barely see it because I wrote in pencil.
And we have like blue lights and purple lights going on.
So, cute story. Okay, let's get cute story. So actually, to understand the importance of Sodom and Gomorrah, which is in Genesis chapter 19, we actually, the way I needed to understand it at least was understanding the chapter before it.
Okay.
Which is going to be Genesis chapter 18. And when I talk about saying like, hey, I thought this was like the cutest story ever and it's a true reflection of God and his kindness, it took me reading chapter 18 to understand that. Because God gives us very big contrast in between. This is the cute part. Okay. This is the scary part kind of deal. So let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
So we're pretty early in the Bible. I had mentioned it earlier. We're before everything with the Israelites. Two main characters at this time are going to be Abraham and Lot. Abraham is going to be the main character of our cute story.
Okay.
Abraham, he is big guy in the Hebrew faith or in the Abrahamic faith. He was one of God's like chosen people. He is just chosen by God. Yeah.
He had a lot of kids.
Yes. And we are said to be like
descendants.
Yes.
Him specifically.
Yeah. And his big thing was God called him to say, hey, all right, Abraham, you are a righteous guy and you're following me. And I'm telling you to just get up and leave and go to this land that I've promised you. Sorry. I'm telling you to get up and leave so that you can pursue this life where you will be extremely abundant and have all these kids and la 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 la.
Right.
And Abraham said, okay.
Okay, I'm gonna do
Yeah. He also is the guy that was, and whether or not you've heard the story or not, that sacrificed his son, or was going to sacrifice his son Isaac because God wanted to test him to be like, how much do you love me?
Do you really follow me?
Do you love me?
Kill my
Would you love me if I was a worm? Oh God, but make it killing your son.
Gosh. This is God.
Yeah.
Would you love me if I lived like this? And Abraham's like, yeah, I'll kill my son.
Yeah.
Also, I feel like there's a lot of stories about Abraham doing some whack stuff. There's a couple.
There is.
And Sarah, right? That was a weird one. We're not weird, but it was like, I'm gonna give you a baby.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which
she was I'm 50.
We actually covered that.
Okay, cool. I'll let you.
Actually, I was gonna kind of ignore it, that part of the story.
Ignore it
then. But yes, and she giggled and she lied to God.
Yeah.
She was like, I'm not. She's 90, so she's like, I'm past that point. And then God was like, I guess wasn't looking at her, and she was eavesdropping on this conversation that God was having with Abraham, and was like, your wife's gonna have a baby.
Yeah.
She's like, in the back. And then God all of a sudden it's like,
I like when you do that. I think that's so funny for no reason.
He calls her out.
Yeah. He gives her a baby.
He says, anything too hard for the Lord? Verse 14, chapter 18, verse 14. Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the appointed time, I will return to you in the spring, and Sarah shall have a son. 15. But Sarah denied, saying, no, just kidding. Sorry. Chapter 15, this is what she said. But Sarah denied, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. He said, as in God, no, but you did laugh. I was like,
gagged.
And then it goes on,
Sarah.
And then it goes on to the next part.
The next part, like a different,
a different point. Like something totally else.
Scene end, black screen.
Yes, but you did though.
Next.
I was like, oh.
He got her together quick.
I know, and I'm like, also, why would you lie?
Yeah.
Like, I get you're scared, but also just be honest.
It was early on. They didn't know.
Yeah, that's true. They were a lot closer.
So early.
Also, Abraham's like best use with God.
Yeah.
So like,
and she's 90. She's like, I'm gonna be dead.
Yeah, maybe she wasn't thinking. But now you're
These
gonna have a
people
baby.
don't seem to think a lot in the Bible. I'm not gonna lie.
Anyway, okay, this was so fun to research. Actually, okay. Verse 18. So Sarah sucks, but Sarah's a liar. Gets called out.
Sarah.
But she is married to Abraham, who is the chosen one. Lots of stories connected to that guy. You got to read. Okay, but right now where we're at is they're married. They don't have any children at this point. They're just old. They've been traveling we're in chapter 18 right now, but in chapter 12 is when God called Abraham.
Okay.
When we first get introduced to Abraham as a character.
So for a good few chapters, all they're doing is traveling. Not having babies yet.
Yes. So in fact, we also get introduced to Lot in chapter 12. So these guys already had some experience in the Bible. So what happened with these two is Abraham got called by God to like, hey, go travel. Abraham was already married to Sarah. And so he's like, all right, take my wife, I guess. And then he took Lot, who is his nephew.
Okay.
And so they were all traveling together, like going through lands. And then all of a sudden, Abraham's like, you know, Lot, we don't technically need to go to the same area. Like we weren't like my land is destined for my land, or my destination is my destination. Doesn't mean it's yours.
That's crazy.
And Lot's like, you're right. So maybe they were like,
I mean, I feel like Lot was trying not to cry when he said, "You're right."
No, yeah.
If my uncle was like, "Hey, you should leave,"
I know.
I'd be like,
after literally, it's not even your dad; it's your uncle.
I know. I would be like, how bad of a personality do I have, man? Like, dang, I just want to travel with you.
Abraham, this very faithful, God-fearing man, probably kind.
Yeah.
Being
maybe this Lot guy just sucks.
Well,
I don't know.
Okay.
I've never heard of Lot.
Yes, it's.
So he must suck. If I've never heard of him.
You're gonna get this. So they do separate on their journeys.
Okay.
Abraham lands up in the land of Canaan, which is, we eventually learn, is like turns awful.
Right.
Go back to Leviticus. Lot is right on the outskirts of Sodom.
Oh.
Of the city of Sodom. And he did this because he saw the land, and it was weird. Like, I don't know if I was not reading this right or if I am, but essentially it sounded like Lot wanted to be a big fish in a little pond. And he picked this land because he knew he could be fruitful, but also like not really push himself. Question mark. Like Abraham had a reason. Anyway, Abraham's just trying to go do what God tells him to do.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going to have a million babies.
Follower, for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a weird thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm interpreting wrong. Chat, help. So, okay. At one point, so there's a war going on.
Okay.
There is like, I want to say it was 5 years. 12. There was a war.
Okay.
It's between 5 different like army lands kings. One of them is the king of Sodom. Or the army of Sodom, whatever. And they're all just like going at it, right? I think at this point there was also like different alliances happening to the point where it was like 2 against 3 at one point or something like that. Maybe there was 7. There was a lot going on here.
Okay. It's a war.
Yes. Lot gets caught up in it. Lot, the Sodomites get driven out. They are losing.
Dang.
They leave all their goods. This other army takes it all. Yes, other army takes it all. Takes Lot with them. He gets captured because he got taken up with all the goods, because I don't know why he didn't leave.
Why didn't he leave?
So, I don't know. Abraham is like, hears about it. Gathers like 1,300 men, I believe. And is like, let's go get him.
What?
Defeats that army, the army that captured him, gets the goods back and gets Lot back. And then the king of Sodom, essentially, Abraham gets some army, puts it together real quick, goes, defeats the people that had Lot captured, gets the goods back, gives it back to the king that was like one of the allies of the Sodomites. But the Sodomite king was also there. And they essentially had like this really great, like this king blessed Abraham. And it was like this huge thing because this king was not technically Hebrew, but he was an outside source. But he was also like a divine character in the Bible, and he blesses Abraham.
Oh.
Yeah. And it's like, it's a pretty symbolic, like you don't have to be a certain way to be used by God. But then he's also like protagonist, antagonist character in the Bible. Anyway.
Complex.
Yes. He also essentially that king story is Mesodetek, something like that. I'll put it here.
Like,
but his thing is he does God's work for money, and so he got in trouble for that. But he's like still doing God's work? ? Anyway, so the Sodomite king was there, which is so interesting because he sees his blessing. He's cordial with Abraham. It's not. At the time, it didn't say anything about the Sodomites being the way that they were, that we're going to read about here, which they're infamous for being corrupt. And it just is so interesting. Like, it was like, what a life. And Lot, you just got rescued, and now you're still living on the outskirts of the city of Sodom, or like kind of on the outskirts, but like still in the city. And like, you've been raised up with Abraham, who's literally God's first choice. Like, it is just, there's a lot of lore behind that. And I was like, whoa, we're reading all this. Okay. But we're past that. They live different lives. Okay. So they're separate. They get Abraham, I think, after.
I thought that's what you were going to say.
No!
They get divorced.
No! Abraham and Lot?
I know. Yeah, I said what I said. Yeah, I know.
They separate.
Yeah, that's what made me think.
So then we're at this point. This is where we get to. I'm going to skip anything else that happened in between there. Chapter 18. So right now, before Sarah gets called out by God, Abraham, he's living a pretty quiet life. He's just like, he's chilling. This story describes, it starts out with him, Abraham, having sat in the middle of this desert. It's hot. Apparently this desert's over flipping hot. He's sitting and he's waiting for visitors to come by so that he can treat them.
Treat them?
Yeah.
Or like illnesses?
No, like
treat?
Like, I'm going to make you dinner. And like be like a nice little pit stop.
Oh.
And it was really cute. Shout out to Matthew Henry. Because he really writes about it in a really beautiful way, in the sense of Abraham created time to sit and to wait to do God's work and to be kind and loving and hospitable. Mm-hmm. And as you keep reading, you see Abraham, eventually visitors do come, which, surprise, they're actually like angels, 3 angels. One of them, there's a debate on if one of them was God originally, because it's like, there's 2 angels for sure. The third one, at some point, God like turns up in this chapter and is like just talking out of nowhere to Abraham. And so they were like, well, it's probably one of the angels that originally came. But then it says 3 angels. It was, anyway.
It's up for debate.
Yes.
Okay.
But essentially, you see as the story unravels, Abraham was just waiting. And he sees 3 visitors. He runs up to them. And he's old. Yeah. If Sarah's 90, and also they have age gaps, I feel like. So
they just give age gap, like he maybe is a lot older.
Yes, like at least 120.
I mean, that's another point of like the Bible. Like, didn't people live a lot longer? Mm-hmm. In like biblical stories, people were like old.
I think.
I don't know how true that is.
No, I want to say Abraham lived to 500 or 200. I don't know. My numbers are all over.
Well, read.
So he runs up to them, the 120-year-old man, and he's like, "Hey, like, I'm so happy you're here.
I was waiting for you in this desert."
Yes, and I'm like, what? And so I would not make the time of day. No. So sorry. Which I guess I do have something to work on, which is crazy. Anyway, but it's so cute to think about this little old man just waiting, and he runs into these visitors, and he's like, "Guys, come over to, like, let's sit under this fig tree." Yes, and he's like, "Are you guys good? Like, let me help you relax. I know you've been traveling. Like, you can wash your feet.
Yeah.
And yada yada. Like, I did highlight that. Rest yourselves. Like, use my place to rest so that you can go and continue on your journey.
Mm.
And ask them any questions about what they were doing. At least from what I know, he just is doing it. He's just doing it. Yeah. And I think it highlights, like, God just wants us to be kind. And yeah, I was like, oh, like,
that is kind of
those little grandpas that are like, Mia, you know, they call you Mija, and you're like, ah. And then like, we used to have this little lady who used to make us lasagna and like just invited us over for funsies. And I loved it. It was like great. And I think about her when I read this.
The lady that I know? Or like,
we went to dinner.
Okay. I don't remember lasagna.
She made it homemade.
I just don't remember the lasagna. I didn't know if that was who.
She made peach jam, actually.
But yes, I know.
Ooh, that would be good peach jam. Anyway, all right. So,
apologize.
He invites these people in. He literally is like, I'm going to make you dinner. Turns to Sarah, we need to make dinner. Sarah's like, on it.
Whoa.
Makes dinner. He goes and kills a calf for these visitors. And he's like, he just is like treating them for what?
To be nice. Just to be nice.
It is so cute. Like, I'm like, Abraham, girl, cute. Yeah. God. Perfect.
Like the John Quiñones, what would you do? Would you turn away these travelers, or would you bring them into your house? They're actually God. It's like the guy that turned them away is like, oh my God. Don't worry. No. And Abraham's like, you guys, great.
Ready. Literally, and like the way they say it, because he was sitting at his tent and like they were coming up down the road. I feel like this man had to run a minute. Like at least a good block. Yes, like to come up to them and be like, hi! Like
so silly.
I just so cute. Okay, and then those angels are like, blessed.
Yeah,
we're angels. And then they were like, hey, we're gonna bless you with the son. We know that, like, we're messengers from God. Like, we'll give it. That's when Sarah's eavesdropping. Yeah, but you did. Oh, God. Yeah, I was so wild. And then just, next scene. Like, dang. Anyway. Okay. Still on the hospitality. So you'll hear this theme, and when you're reading and researching Sodom and Gomorrah, this theme of hospitality, and how the argument is for those who are saying that Sodom and Gomorrah does not pertain to homosexuality, that it's a book about the lack of hospitality, and that's why Sodom and Gomorrah were, taken out. This theme of hospitality really, it just is like a continuing thing between these two chapters, because even then, after the whole Sarah laughing thing, continuing on with that, Abraham, before these angels set out on their way, because they're like, hey, we gotta go. Abraham's like, let me walk you at least to a certain point.
Still being nice.
Yes. He's like, let me set you on your way. So he walks them out, I believe, to like the very edge of their like little land or whatever marking. And I, again, assume that's kind of a minute away, because like they had land. Yeah. It's not like my yard where it's like, driveway. Yeah, so
2 miles.
Yeah, and he's old. So they walk him out. Okay, this is then where God appears.
Okay.
So God's like now in the picture, and it's like the Lord was thinking. So we're like, this is why one of the angels was God. Okay. But also, like, who knows? Anyway.
Could have just popped down.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
I don't know.
Tapped out one of the angels.
I'll take it from here.
Yeah.
It's John Quiñones. All right, I'll take it from here. Pulls out the actor away. Okay, so I'm on John Quiñones. And you're on, what would you do?
Abraham's like,
you made the right choice.
Except your wife is dumb.
And I've cursed your wife, but you're cool. Hey.
He's like, I would hope so. I'm chosen.
It's worth it. She's making them dinner. I'm the chosen one.
Yeah, he cooked it. She cooked it up. He said, go make them dinner.
When he said that, I went, whoa.
Yeah, and she said, yeah, go. I'll get the cow. There's a really cute point after the whole little Abraham walks him out. God's here now. Obviously, God and Abraham homies,
Yeah.
There's a point when we get at verse 17 in Genesis 18, and God starts talking to himself, and he's like, should I tell Abraham what I'm doing here, or what I'm on a journey for? And then God's like kind of thinking to himself, like, he's like, oh, well, I blessed Abraham and I want him to be successful and his children. So I'll tell him.
Okay.
I think that is part of what really, again, Matthew Henry laid it out so well. And he was like, for God to even consider, like, thinking about telling Abraham what his plans are and why he's down here, and to really sit and just think about how that would affect Abraham and make that choice to do what's right for him. Like, that's God's friend. Like,
Yeah.
when I make decisions, like, I don't know, I don't really think about I really put thought, if I make a decision that way where I'm like, well, how should I do this? How would I affect them? I really have to care about someone. Because, like, if I'm telling you what to do, like, there's certain people that I'm just like, I just need you to do this right now. And I don't really care.
Yeah.
But for God and all-loving God, all-powerful, to really just be like, should I do this? Like, that's your friend,
Consider
dude.
it.
Yeah, like, it was really cute. It's almost like, I was like, oh my gosh, like, and Abraham, yes, and Abraham's just waiting there, like, to be like,
take your time.
Yeah, do what you need to do. Like, I'm here. I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's
kind of crazy.
I just, like, and God does not need to tell nobody nothing.
No.
And at the end
That's what makes it cute, though.
Yeah, like, he really was like, yeah. Okay, so then he tells him, because he's like, if I want Abraham to be successful, he's my friend. He's like, hey, I'm going to go destroy the city of Sodom.
Right.
So
that was the plan.
So he's like,
I tell him I'm going to destroy this town.
Yeah, so he's like, I'm going to go.
That went from cute to not so cute.
Yeah, so that's where people get scared.
Right.
Loki, well, actually, he doesn't say he's going to destroy it. He says, I'm sending out 2 angels. The cries against Sodom, the city of Sodom, have been so bad. Multiple prayers have been coming to me, complaints have been coming in my inbox about these guys. It's been so bad. I'm going to send 2 people out to see what's going on, make sure that the cries are true, and it seems like they will be. So plan is, like,
I'm going to bomb them.
Yeah.
So if it's true, I'm going to bomb them.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah.
So Moses.
Whoa.
Is then like, God, or sorry, Moses.
Yeah, I was like, wait, whoa, that's quite.
Yeah, my bad. Abraham is like, wait, God.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about the importance of that at first, because at first I was like, because Moses then is like, God, wait.
You said Moses again.
Gosh.
I'm so.
Abraham.
Yeah.
Abraham is like, God, like, what if there's good people in there, though?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you going to kill them too? And for just the way it sounded, God was pretty dead set on being like, these people need to be blown up. So God looks at Abraham and is like, if there's good people in there, I won't. And they have this little debate where it's like, if there's 50 good people, will you destroy it, God? And God's like, no, if there's 50, if I find 50, I'll do it. Like, it's okay. And then Abraham's like, okay, what about 40? And God's like, okay, like 40, yeah, okay. It literally, they do this back and forth until 10.
Okay, yeah, so he's still gonna bomb it even if there's 50 good people.
No, he's not going to.
Wait. I know how this story goes. You're reminding me, but for some reason, I'm not putting it together.
If there are, in the city of all these bad people, if there are 50 good people, God won't destroy them.
Okay, yeah, good. But then he bartered down to 10?
Yeah, because Abraham is also like, 50's a lot! Like, they're so bad, and I will tell you.
Now, for some reason, that took me so long to understand, like, what you were saying. But I'm recalling now what the story actually is.
Yes, and it gets even worse. So I thought it was pretty bad in general from what I knew. And then I did some research on exactly what was going on in there. And those cries against the city of Sodom are it just put a different emphasis to that statement, and to the point where I'm like, even like right now, like it. Anyway, so we get there. So that's why Abraham was like 10.
Yeah. Will you take 10?
Yeah, and God was like, okay. Which I was like, that is so cute. Like God.
Although it's crazy to be like, why wouldn't you just do it for one? But like, you know.
Yeah, well, that's where Lot's story comes in. Because, well, first of all, too, I thought God really must have had to think of things, because a lot of me was like, Abraham. Yeah, some people just got to take for the team.
Yo.
So, like, because bad. But low-key, these might have been like Abraham's friends. Because back in the day, they were at each other's like little blessing. And
yeah,
the Sodomites, like, were very thankful to Abraham for being like, thank you for getting our goods. And you are connected. We are connected because you also got your nephew back. Yeah. And
there's history there.
Yeah. And I just am like, no wonder Abraham is like, hey, if you find, like, what if that's my friend? That's
what if it's Lot?
Yeah. And so I think, you know, again, it seems pretty right for God to blow up the city in the way he is, considering what we'll learn. But he cared about Moses more. And there's a verse, and it's in James chapter 5, verse 16, which is an outside verse. It talks about the prayer of a righteous person is so powerful and effective. And it's like you're seeing that here. And I think it's just so cool to be like, dang, God really cares. Yeah, he really is down for the people that like he loves and that love him. Like, I was like, that is so cute.
It's cool to like see it outright.
Yeah, and I was like, that is why this story is so beautiful. Like, again, seeing it from the outside, I'd be like, yeah, okay, 10, 30, 20, 10. Because they literally go through like increments of 10. I'm like, get to it. But no, I think there's a reason. I think there's a reason for that. And to understand also where Abraham's coming from, like, oh, like that's awful. And also you just gave these guys food. You fed them and you're like,
now you want to bomb them?
Yeah.
I just fed you. I thought this was what would like John Quiñones do.
Yeah. And like also good on Abraham for trusting in God in that. That would be hard for me to not just be like, please forgive them. Like, like maybe they can change. Like, also apparently these Sodomites have a history of like being bad, and then like Sorry. So like I'm sure Abraham also had to consider like, okay, God, like so that's, I think in a way it's like a friendship. This is truly like a friendship moment between God and one of his people, and I think that was really cool to read. Yeah. So that's where now we're at chapter 19.
Okay.
Where we're actually talking about Sodom and Gomorrah. So this is going to be a little bit, hopefully, faster. I'm only actually going to be going through verses 1 through 10. Because that's like the part about the actual like city getting blown up and why. Okay. There is more to it, and that's the story of what you hear about Lot getting torn on, his wife turning around and turning to Saul and that little
But this is taking me back to when I was a little kid. Yeah,
and it is kind of a scary story. Whoa. Yes, so
turning to Saul. Okay, whoa, yeah. I feel like they taught me this at my Sunday school class, like for the kids.
Yes, I think it is one of the scarier stories in the sense of
triggered me.
Trigger warning.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, no,
this is the part where we are going to see God's wrath.
Yeah.
So, and I think that is why it's taught, as well as it's a fear tactic.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately, again, after I was even like, but then I'm reading it, I was like, even through this fear and like God about to blow up this trigger warning, God about to blow up this city, I am still able to see like God is like good. Like God is trying to do something, like help. So here we are at chapter 19. So here we go, guys. Okay. So God has sent these angels out, which we just saw at the end of chapter 18. And it's the same two angels. We assume it's the same two angels that just walked away. They finally walk into Sodom, the city of Sodom. And, you know, some people, I've always had the question too of like, which I think is even more of a reflection of God's like mercy and grace, is that like, why would God need to send angels down to check it out? Like God can literally see it. if he's God, why does he need to send angels?
Yeah.
He can see.
That's an interesting point.
I always thought that. Like, what? Like, why?
Yeah.
Why? But like,
well, and that question then can be, why are there angels? Period.
Yeah. I think about that too. But it's. I read Matthew Henry.
Yeah.
He said it. At this point, yeah.
Lead into it.
It would be an honor to marry you, Matthew Henry.
He's so dead. He's so old.
I'm also gay.
He wouldn't want you anyway. That's what
he would want me to be a housewife.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like, babe, can I help you with your book?
And he'd be like, you have to change everything about you and your appearance and your personality, and then you can.
No, he'd be like, go in the kitchen. He was very big on women should stay quiet and they should do their role. That way they can be blessed by God.
And that's why you would have to change your appearance, change your personality, and...
You don't think I could get away with the short hair?
No. Not dressed like how you do as well. One has to change, I guess. You can keep the hair, but you have to wear long skirt dresses only.
So, we have these angels. Matthew Henry, my husband, he said that God does this in order to show his diligence in essentially what is like judicial review, in the sense of he is not the only judge.
Okay.
He's creating counsel, and in order to show his, again, diligence to us, which I was like,
That's a good thought.
Wow, you did not need to do that. And also God is hearing the direct cries of these people, which we just learned about in chapter 18, against the city, and he's still going through the procedure, which policy procedure with love, HR. Okay.
And also considering Abraham's point of view. Crazy.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah.
Like, wow. Like, gosh.
What a man.
Then we get introduced to Lot. Lot does the same thing Abraham does in chapter 18. He is waiting for visitors at the edge of the city.
Oh, really? I thought you were going to say he's trying to barter for the lives of the Sodomites.
No.
He's not?
So he's living on the outskirts of town.
On the outskirts of town, and Romeo, take me.
Somewhere we can be alone. No, he's like, do not be alone. So, exactly opposite. So he actually, and this is kind of like inferred, my husband, inferred, but I do agree with the point. So Lot, he chose to be at the edge of the city of Sodom. He chose to live there. That was like his place, which is so odd because we see in this beginning, he's hanging out at the wall, which is like the city's edge, and he's waiting for visitors in the same way that Abraham is. And he does the same thing, runs up to them and is like, hey, come use my house as a place of rest. It's getting late. We'll make you dinner, yada, yada, wash your feet. So these characteristics, I literally went through and I could highlight like the little different actions that they did of like washing feet, offering rest. Yeah, it was like the same form of what is recognized as hospitality to a stranger. And it wasn't like a big grand gesture or anything. It is just what they can give, but it's all that they can give at that time. Yeah. Again, just kindness. But unlike Abraham's angels, these angels were like, no, it's okay, we'll sleep outside. That's when we see in verse 3.
Okay.
It says, Lot urged them strongly you need to come sleep in my house tonight. Don't sleep outside. So with this, there is this idea where Lot, who's sitting on the city's edge, unlike Abraham, who was waiting just to be kind and to do God's work, Lot's doing it, yes, to do God's work, but in a way to protect foreigners, because we're going to start getting into now what is the culture of the city of Sodom. Is the culture is to be not hospitable to
outsiders.
Yes.
People
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, in Ezekiel, this is where we really lean into this idea of, hey, who were the Sodomites? What was their sin? Their sin was inhospitality and just greed and yada yada. And we see this in Ezekiel chapter 16, verses 49 through 50. This was the guilt of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters had pride, excess of food, and prosperous ease, but did not aid the poor and needy. They were haughty and did abominable things before me. Therefore, I removed it when I saw it. Sodom, or Lot, knows this about the city of Sodom, and that's why he is urging these people to stay with them. And sure enough, right after verse 3, this is when we get to verse 3, he urges them. In verse 4, he gets them water. Okay, he urges them strongly to come in verse 3. Then in verse 4, this is where we start to get the introduction and see the characters of the city of Sodom, or the people of the city of Sodom. And it says in verse 4, but before they lay down from the night, the angels that were there, the men of the city, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both young and old, all the people to the last man surrounded the house. Verse 5, and they called to Lot, where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us, that we may know them. This is our first introduction. What's happening here is they aren't being like, hey, let's know them. In verse 5, we have that we may get to know them, this phrase, Blue Letter Bible. We go back into the actual Hebrew word that they were referring to, and that Hebrew word is called yada. Yada is used, which I actually want to do a full episode on these because there is a separation. Yada is a word used 947 times in the Bible, at least from what the Strong's Concordance recorded. And essentially it means to know or to, it insinuates in the sense of getting to know something on a more intimate level, but with a knowledge of it. So a lot of people will say, okay, yada is used in a sexual sense, as in getting to know someone on a deeper, intimate level, because we do see yada used in the creation of Adam and Eve and when they first are physically intimate with each other. There is a debate to that because actually yada, and same with here, yada is used in a physical sense, which it's implying to say let's get to know them.
Yeah.
Their intention here in chapter 19 was to know them again sexually.
Well, I mean, they're all around the house.
Yes.
As a woman, I feel a lot of that just is what is your hey?
Yeah. So a lot of people will then use this word because it's describing to get to know, which is the usual direct definition, kind of
straight up, just get to know,
yes,
platonically.
Yes, or just in general.
Yeah.
Because of these instances throughout the Bible where yada is used to get to know in a sexual form, they think there has to be some sort of physical intimacy involved or deeper,
For this verse.
However, in fact, yada is actually only used in a sense of intimacy, physical intimacy, 1%.
Oh, wow.
In all the times that it's used, it's the percentage that it is. I think it was 20 something times. Yeah. Only 1% of that is in reference to sexual intimacy.
So then what I said just now could be wrong. It doesn't necessarily mean in a physical sense, but it's just definitely in a scary sense. And with
yes,
the stuff that God had been hearing.
Yes. Maybe, and so
you could imply.
Yes.
Imply.
There is record of some of their acts, which I think is what also got us to be enlightened to what was actually going on here. So you're right in the sense of they're surrounding the house, and as a woman, you feel a certain way about that. Yeah. And it was
men.
Yes.
Let me get to know you.
Yes.
Hey, what?
Yeah. So, and also, mind you, these angels, the way that they're conveyed is they're male angels. Thus, where this issue of people being gay sex, yada, sex, boys, they're both boys. That's where that came out of.
I'm trying to. I'm trying to find it.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes 100% sense, and that's why I was like, I had to like, oh,
yes,
yeah. Sorry, I was sorry.
Yes, and so that's why when taking it, just being like, I don't know how you guys honestly got it. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I get it, because yada, I was confused by the word yada too. I didn't realize like the percentage and the stats, and it obviously took me some time to be like, you know, and like, thank you researchers who have done this before. But like, in just context of if you were like, yep, to get to know, oh,
yep, sex,
Adam and Eve, gay, yeah, sex, they had sex, gay sex.
It's like a pretty big jump.
Yes, and then
like context wise.
Yes, and so like, okay, I get it.
It probably just mean like
read,
but also like it could also just mean like something bad. Like it doesn't mean get like I mean
yeah, no, yep,
yeah, and
also it's hard to. There is this element too of people being like, the argument is within this is that, so yes, there's a bunch of men. Yes, they are in this context trying to yada, and which we'll go into that word more later. But essentially, is they are trying to have sexual intercourse with these angels, and they classify it as what is I can't say it on the pod technically, but an unconsensual gang.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
So that is usually the argument for this story, in the sense of those who want to say, hey, this isn't about homosexuality.
Again, it feels like obviously like a power thing.
Yes.
There's a bunch of dudes.
Yes.
And there's these new people. And if they're angels, they're probably beautiful.
Yes. And mind you, it says these men, all the men who were surrounding the house, were both young and old.
Yeah, it's just like everybody.
Yes.
Nasty over there.
Yeah, so it definitely was. And when we learn more about the context, which actually the Bible doesn't really go into like what was the culture of the city of Sodom, other than this, which I think that's very telling, but it actually takes going into, well, hold on. Also, it gets confusing before we even get into that, because like we say, read more into the Bible. Unfortunately, the Bible doesn't really give it in this one, which sorry. But in a couple verses later, first of all, Lot goes to the door and is like, no, like he literally, this is so cute. So those men are trying to get at these angels. Yeah. A lot of them. They're banging at the door. Lot literally tells the angels, like, get inside. And he goes in front of the door and he's like, guys, please leave them alone. And he's contending against all these men in the city to be like, stop. They're just leave them alone. He doesn't know that they're angels at this moment. So he's just protecting these men. Yeah. I think that is the sweetest thing ever. And also a bunch of dudes being like, trying to do stuff. Yeah. And they're just mean people. And to be like, I'm going to go up and contend for these strangers. Yeah. Okay. And
good person alert.
Yes. Jail. We see those qualities that were being used to reflect as Abraham being a godly man, also being reflected here as Lot is. Yeah. Yes. So in a way, some scholars too debate that Lot is even more kind and loving than Abraham for putting himself in this position, which I guess it just, also I'm like, the situation is like each different, but also I'm like, that is huge. Low-key, extra brownie points for me.
Like low-key is huge, but also like, the situations are very different.
Yeah. But I thought that was really cute. Which, okay. He's like, no, please do not do so. In verse 7, he says, I beg you, my brothers, do not act so wickedly. Which again, on capitalizing on the whole, like, they're trying to be gay. The Lot being like, don't be wicked. Yeah. It's like, people are like, yep, gay's wicked. Like, dang. Okay. Dang. So then it gets even worse capitalizing on this.
No, I'm done.
It gets even worse when in verse 8, Lot says, behold, I have 2 daughters who have not known man. Let me bring them out to you and do to them as you please. Only do nothing to these men, for they have come under the shelter of my roof.
So, what are we doing?
I know. So,
what are we doing?
I know. So, literally,
what?
Okay, so this is where it gets kind of weird. Because argument is, or can be seen as, these people Lot wanted to avoid these guys having gay sex so much that he's willing to let his daughters get assaulted. His virgin daughters get assaulted.
Yeah. What? Who's giving this man brownie points still? Reading this and then being like, actually, he's better than Abraham.
Yeah, so,
what?
And people are like, to give that up, and people use the argument, one sin is greater than the other, which low-key in Leviticus, God kind of puts a tally point, like a point system on sins.
Okay.
And they were like, at this point, even Matthew Henry, my husband.
Yeah.
Even my husband said it. You trade one sin to be the lesser of the evil to do that one. If you are put in the position, you should always try to avoid it, though. In this case, you couldn't. Okay.
That's crazy. Just the emphasis and how flipped it's become now.
Yes.
It's like, those are not the same level. I mean, they're both definitely unconsensual.
Yes.
So it's like, in my mind, it feels like they're the same because it's unconsensual.
Mm-hmm.
But if it
yeah. So I understand those people that, to an extent, I understand where they're like,
I don't.
Yeah. And there's a lot of emotion that goes behind that too. Like, as like a daughter, like,
yeah,
I know my dad would never do that. Like,
no.
Which also was a hard part when I first was reading this before really diving into it. I was like, my dad would like protect me at all costs, in the sense that like, if there were strangers that would get hurt, he'd be like so quick. And I remember thinking like, Lot, are you sexist? Are you a bad dad? Like, my dad would never do that. And then when it came to thinking about, well, in terms of being gay, is like homosexuality, like the homosexual sex, that awful? Like that you would, so I get that part. So it really unravels itself that's literally verse 8. So
insane. Obviously they didn't teach me that at 8 years old in Sunday school, but oh my gosh.
So to an extent, as much as I'm like, this reveals God's love, I get that. Okay, so however, this is one of those situations where I say read a little bit longer. Okay. Because later on, I think it's chapter 20, I believe, we learn the character of Lot's daughters.
Okay.
And I'm not shaming anybody.
What are you about to say?
So the story behind Lot's daughters is that, essentially, long story short, they get out of the city, Sodom, and they go to a different land. And in this time, after they escape, the mom's salt. The daughters, their husbands didn't come along. They didn't want to leave.
Okay. Wait.
Who they were supposed to be.
Okay.
Yeah, they were engaged to. Because I said that too. I was like,
yeah.
Who they were engaged to, their fiancés didn't come along. Boom. Blown up with the city. So when they're in this new land, they get nervous. And they say, we don't have any like successors. Like, we're going to die out.
Yeah.
They get Lot drunk.
Oh, yeah.
And this is where we see our incest. And they each take turns getting their dad drunk on different nights and get impregnated by him and have his babies.
Yeah.
So
different times, but also, what are you doing, guys?
Yeah. So there is also this element of Lot. It never really talked about his children, or like up until now, from what I know. There is an argument of, was Lot's daughters as bad as the people of the city? And that's where he lived. And did they, like, culturally, were they just as bad as these people? Because that's where they grew up and that's their environment. And their character is
questionable.
Telling of that, yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Lot was the one waiting. Lot was the one who,
was trying to help the angels, but also,
yeah.
I mean,
so, and who knows what those daughters were doing? And I know that he said, my daughters are virgins.
You're questioning? Bruh.
Well, they were willing to do that.
Not to shame.
I just, with your dad, bro? Well, And I get the successor part, but like,
yeah, and it was,
but also
year 2, so they didn't have many options.
Also, though, you got your dad drunk.
Like, yeah, you knew that he wouldn't, and like you had to alter him.
Also, God literally rescued you from the city that he like blew up. Your mom turned to salt. You don't think God will help you out with the baby?
You never know.
And it's really, again, this whole idea of theme of unconsensual sex within this chapter or within this city is flowing itself out into what these daughters did. And so in a way, the argument is Lot knew his daughters were just as bad as the people of the city. God brought them out of the city because Lot loves them. And obviously God has shown his compassion. But like, maybe Lot low-key knew and was like, you can do, my daughters are into that, I guess. Like, let's protect these people. Like,
that's it
is a crazy thought. And I don't want to say I agree with it. And
like, we don't know that that's true. It's just like the undertones that you're picking up on.
Yes. But man, really listening to those daughters, they conspired against their dad. They really got him drunk. They did stuff with him.
Yeah.
And they were happy about it. And it is a shameful story in the book. Like, it's God, it's meant to be written in a way of shame.
Man.
So in a way, there is that argument, and it takes reading further into it. And it's one of those also like stories that you question, like, what is this about?
Yeah.
But I think it's in connection to this. It's very telling of, it's more of like an explanation as more than,
like a consequence.
Yeah. So food for thought. Take that as you will. Also, I think it's important in order to understand maybe the environment the daughters were growing up in. We now go into the environment of the city for real. So talking about the culture of the city, we don't get a lot of it in this Bible. However, in Judaism, they have records of what this culture looked like.
They do?
Yes.
Okay.
There's like in the book Judaism, but also in like those pieces of literature that are not technically like part of the biblical like foundation, but like are connected, like the book of Jasher. You'll see that. And like, I guess possibly, I think there was like references, I don't know, just like different rabbinistic,
I don't know.
Writings from rabbis, records that we just don't see in the Christian faith, or we don't find in the Christian faith very easily. Where's the point I was going to make on that? Also, though, what's funny is for a long time, as much as there's these writings, which somewhat also explains why people use the story so much as a target, we still low-key don't know if the city of Sodom and Gomorrah is real. There's no proof. Like, usually the Bible has some sort of evidence for like, there could have been a massive flood at some time, like, and that works within science or something like that, or the Big Bang and the lights and like the creation of there is no like archaeologists and scientists. They are like kind of like, they can't agree.
I feel like there was like in my Sunday school, I could be misremembering this, but I remember one of my pastors or something being like, and it's real because you can still see the salt where she was. Yeah. Or like there's still like now it's like a salt plain or whatever.
Yeah.
The culture
of the city of Sodom. Okay. So, hold on. Back to like, is it real?
Oh, yeah.
Evidence was found in the more recent years, actually, about like the pillar of salt. The pillar of salt, I have heard that. I have not seen any research on it. And also, it does not make sense. If it rains...
Yeah, it's salt.
Yes. Like okay. So, what ends up happening in this story, by the way, if we haven't spoiled it yet.
Yeah, we have.
God does end up having to destroy the city of Sodom and
so Abraham
Gomorrah.
Can't find anyone. So, real quick, because now I kind of just want to know the story. Lot offers up his daughters are they like, yeah, and we'll spare these two men?
I forgot that we haven't even finished the story.
Sorry.
No.
I just wanted to know.
Okay, here's the story. Maybe I'll put this also in a section that, like, in the beginning to, like, preface it as well.
Like, edit it together.
Yeah, because, like, here's a quick little blurb. Here's the story. Here's a quick, brief story of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Okay, go.
Just for reference. Okay. I'm going to start from the beginning. 2 angels go into the city of Sodom because God has heard what are multiple cries from people against them. Their culture is supposed to be known to be mean. So the story is these 2 angels go into the city of Sodom, and Lot, who is a resident there, but also not a sodomite, he sees these two angels and he says, hey, come stay at my house. Let me be hospitable to you. Let me feed you. Let me give you a place to rest so you can go on your journey going forward. Mind you, the meaning or the reason for these angels' journeys were so that they could hopefully find at least 10 good people or at least 10 good righteous people so that they don't destroy the city, as was a agreement between Abraham and God in the previous chapter. Also to see if the cries against the Sodomites were actually real and true. Unfortunately, these 2 angels, after getting invited into Lot's house and taking the night there and getting treated, all the men of the city of Sodom come and they surround the house, both young and old, and they say, Lot, open up your door so that we can get to know your 2 visitors. The phrase used in verse 4, so that we may know them, is implying that they would like to have sexual intercourse with them. At this, Lot does everything he can to protect these 2 visitors, and he puts himself in front of the doorway and begs the men not to come in and do what they're wanting to do. He also offers his 2 virgin daughters up to the men so that they do not have sexual intercourse with the 2 visitors, but instead their daughters or his daughters. At this point, the men, they do not care about his offer of the daughters, and they push through Lot and get into his house. Then the 2 men reveal themselves to be angels, where they take Lot and they kick him out of his own house, and they close the door, and they beat the men that were trying to get at them. They beat the men of the city of Sodom, so much so that they're naked at this point. They beat them up so hard that I know. Whoa. They beat them up so hard that they're naked with like a supernatural source. No, wrong story. Just kidding. I lied. They bring that's a different story. Okay. That's actually a story.
I was gonna say they Uno reversed it.
They take Lot after the men push through Lot. Angels reveal themselves to be angels, supernatural beings. They bring Lot into his house, slam the door shut against all the pressure that all the men of the city are putting on the door, and they strike him with blindness. And so now these men are like, ayo.
Yeah.
They're trying to find the door still. They're still trying to get their way in.
Gosh.
Yes, from what I remember. Yes, they were still trying to find the door, but now they're just like, they can't see. But also their character is revealed through the fact that they're literally blind and still trying to get at these people. Okay. So then the angels turn to Lot after take care of the men. And the angels are like, hey, the Lord found favor in you. You're a righteous person. You are the one righteous person in this whole city that we are able to find. Obviously, everyone's here right now.
Yeah.
We are going to save you. Take the people that you care about. So if you have sons or daughters or their husbands and wives, get them. We're literally going to get you out right now.
Yeah.
There's a little piece of land God has set up for you. Lot actually debates the piece of land that he goes to This is a common thing for him. But so Lot's like, okay, gets all of his stuff, gets his daughters, gets his wife. The daughters had fiancés. The fiancés stayed in the city. And the angels give the command to Lot, and they said, hey, God is going to rescue you, but what you need to do is you literally just need to run. You need to start running out of the city and go across the land and don't turn around. So it's him, his two daughters, and the wife. And the story is the wife turned around and looked at the city one last time as they had already left and were running. And because God wanted her to just stay focused on his plan and didn't want her to turn around and look back at what she was leaving and the old and the sin that she was leaving, she turned to a pillar of salt. And which is then in congruence with how God ended up destroying the city of Sodom and Gomorrah. Gomorrah was a sister city, similar, bad by association. It was like so weird.
By association,
yeah, because this chapter is focused on the city of Sodom, but then it's like and Gomorrah. And I'm like,
the end.
Yeah, I'm like, what happened? But I guess they just were bad too.
Well,
sister city neighbors. Anyway, it'll get you, I guess. So the way God then destroys this is it said that he sent down brimstone, fiery brimstone, which essentially is sulfur rocks. And so I don't know if you guys have seen sulfur burn, but it is like so cool. But it's literally just like, it looks like water, like a clear thing of water. And it just is like, but it's also like white fire. And so it's the hottest fire ever. So he sends these clumps of fire down on them. And he also rains tar down.
I'll get you.
Yeah. On the city of Sodom and Gomorrah. Destroys it, wipes it out. So it's congruent with the idea of the wife turning to salt. Like it's most likely sulfur and she's got to go up with it kind of deal. So scary because it's very like
God's wrath.
Yes. And it's not like the city was small. It wasn't like a small little, it was a city.
Yeah.
Also, so that's a story, by the way.
Thank you.
And geologists, actually, the reason you might have heard this in your Sunday school and they might have been like, it's real!
Yeah.
Is because we believe that Sodom and Gomorrah, like geographically on the map, was by the Dead Sea. Also, Gomorrah has the name, what is like the Hebrew word, it's connected to something similar to mean like deep or deep under. And like something like that, where it's like, I almost thought like down bad over your head kind of deal. But it's crazy because in that sense, the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah are thought to be somewhere in the Dead Sea.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
Which makes sense. It's like, it was like foretelling of Gomorrah. Like, you are over, like, you're under the sea now. You're too down deep into this culture. Now you're down in the sea. In which there's a theme of casting things down into the bottom of the abyss of the sea if they're bad. Also, archaeologists have recently discovered, I think it was early 2000s, these blocks of sulfur on the edges of the Dead Sea. And they were like, that might have been the thing that literally was blowing things up.
They were talking about, yeah.
There's also evidence of somewhere within that area as well of major earthquake in which tar would rain down. Like scientifically, it like makes a line somehow like makes sense that could be a possibility, or like geysers shooting up or something like that. So it was like
oil.
Yes, and it was recent. Like it's more of a recent study, and and it's just. So when people are like, I don't even know if Sodom and Gomorrah is real, which it's one of those, like, it's a Genesis story.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, before I asked the question of, is, like, I remember being told it was real. This kind of, and, like, especially the wife turning around, looking back at, like, the city of sin, it really feels a lot of, like, a metaphor of, like, follow God's plan, don't look back at your past life, like, just try to move forward.
Yes, yes. And then, I don't know, there's almost that, like, which... in context of like, is it real or not? I understand why maybe people were then like, this is a story about gay sex. Like, obviously, this metaphor is just meant to be focused on this, like, one thing that they are. But then I'm like, no, they got, like, for real burned down. Yeah. And it makes the context and the history, the little pieces of history that we're learning about the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah and their culture even more real. Because then outside of Christianity, I saw this research on that people were writing down what this looked like and what it looked like in the city of Sodom. And it's gross. And so again, verse 18. So sorry. Yes. In chapter 18, verse 20, where God reveals why he's going down there to Abraham at first, it says, then the Lord said, because the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great and their sin is very grave. In verse 21, I will go down to see whether they have done altogether according to the outcry which has come to me, and if not, I will know. So talking about the outcry, there is actually a story in Judaism, in the faith, that alludes to what exactly which cry this is. So this is, hang in there, everybody. This is when we're going to get a little crazy. We'll try to go through it quick. I also want to share these examples because I want to show that the lack of hospitality does not just equal God saying, don't be rude. There is a lot more to this, but there also is the extreme of hospitality should be offering food and giving everything that you can. Okay. So in Judaism, there's accounts written to say that in the city of Sodom, it was regular. Extortion was extremely regular in the sense of there was like a river. And so extortion, for those of you who don't know, it's getting money or like capital value gain through force. So essentially robbery, or I wrote pirates because it's like by the sea. I was like, oh, pirates. Okay. Kind of silly. Like robbing. Yeah, don't steal. Okay. Next bullet point, next account, making a victim pay for the aggressor's bleeding. So if someone were to beat you up and and you were to defend yourself and they bled,
that's what I thought.
Then it was,
you pay me.
Yes.
What?
Yeah. Okay. So also imagine the implications of that. If you're broke and you're like, shoot, I'm going to go start a fight. This guy's going to fight me back. Give me money. Like, I am like thinking of like, what does that mean for their society? And how does that look?
It's probably not good.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
What a stupid thing.
I know. Okay, then it gets worse. Okay. Forcing a woman to marry a man who caused her to have a miscarriage to compensate for the loss of his child. So, mind you, that man forced her.
Yeah.
And whatever he did, it didn't say how he did it. Whatever he did.
Gosh.
Yes. They tortured foreigners, which actually and mind you, this isn't only in Judaism, because now in this example of what I'm going to give you about torturing foreigners, this is actually recorded in like Greek mythology, where there's a story about in these accounts where they would offer foreigners beds if they were like coming through like a hotel. And then if they would give them a normal sized bed, but if they were too tall, they would cut the foreigners' legs shorter. Or, yes, if they were too short, they would forcibly stretch them out. Which is like, why give them the bed in the first place? Yeah. So, also, it was criminalized to help the poor and the needy. Which, I know, this is getting ridiculous, guys. But, okay. Here's where we get closer to the outcry to God. And I can understand, okay, it's literally getting to the point where doing the right thing is criminalized. So, like, I understand why God was like, what's going on? Yeah, like, okay, there's literally, you guys are Uno reversing everything that I'm asking you to do. Okay, you're gonna die. I'm so sorry. Okay, I'm gonna zoom. Okay. It was criminalized, but people also would just mess with people. Yeah. So it was illegal to give to the needy. So if you gave them coins, criminalized. However, it wasn't illegal to get your money back when that person died. So I don't know.
I don't know.
So you could, if you could recognize your coins after giving it to a needy person, you can go back after that person dies and get it back. Yeah. Yeah. I don't understand that.
Idiots.
Yeah, that's so unnecessary. But also, I'm like, what were you guys doing to mock these people then? Like, what schemes came out of that? Okay. Mind you, okay, also, it was a capital offense to help the poor. So not just a crime, capital offense. There is a story in the book of Jasher, which is one of those pieces of literature that are outside of the Bible, where actually it was Lot's daughter. One of Lot's daughters. And I'm not sure which daughter it was, but there were two girls, and they met at the well. They were just two young girls, met at the well. One of them's poor, one of them's rich. The poor girl helps the rich girl get a bucket of water from the well. And the next day, the rich girl comes back, and she comes back with like a little basin of bread to say thank you for helping me get the water from the well. Both of them got burned alive for doing that. It wasn't until the whole bread thing, they both got burned alive, which is awful. It's Lot's daughter. Yeah. And then, okay. So I'm not sure how true this is in connection to like if this was the actual story of what is the outcry to God, or if it was multiple, blah, blah, blah. I like to think it was multiple, but here it's saying that, and in the culture of Judaism or in the story of Judaism, I forget exactly where it's at. There was a woman who intended to give water to a traveler, just intended it. The town heard about it, and they covered her in...
Welcome. I know some of you may not know who I am, but my name is Gracie. I am one of the editors of the podcast, mostly the main one. Marissa does a lot of the editing, not gonna lie. But I just wanted to come on here for an outro so y'all could see who I am. And so the reason why I'm filming this outro is because the outro for the pod didn't work. It's fine. So I'm just going to basically give you an outro and just finish off what Marissa and Carrington were talking about. I'm going to basically explain what the outcry was against Sodom and Gomorrah, which provoked God's investigation into the later decision to basically destroy the cities for their wickedness, and it's also referred in Genesis 18:20 through 21. Okay, I'm going to read it. Then the Lord said, "How great is the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah, and how very grave their sin. I must go down and see whether they have done altogether according to the outcry that has come to me, and if not, I will know." Marissa mentioned that this book comes from the book of Jasher, one of those non-canonical books or otherwise unorthodox pieces of literature that is considered supplementary to agreed upon and decided pieces of authoritative scripture found in the Bible. So, while non-canonical books are not usually 100% trusted, I guess, especially considering that the numerous forgeries of the Book of Jasher has been discovered over the years, theologians do consider these works to be good supplemental pieces that can help us understand canon scriptures. Depending on the integrity of the interpreters who wrote out the original Greek and Latin translations of the Book of Jasper, also known as the Book of the Just Man, we thought it would be fun to simply read you the sections that explains and describes the outcry God heard. Trigger warning, it does get a little rough here. The Book of Jasper, chapter 19, verses 41 through 44, it basically is describing the judgment and the decided punishment of the young woman who intended to give the traveler water and bread. Okay, I'm going to read it for you. And the judge said, "The judgment of death must pass upon this woman because she transgressed our law, and this therefore is the decision concerning her." And the people of those cities assembled and brought out the young woman and anointed her with honey from head to toe, as the judge had decreed. And they placed her before a swarm of bees, which were then in their hives, and the bees flew upon her and stung her that her whole body was swelled. And the young woman cried out on account of the bees, but no one took notice of her or pitied her, and her cries ascended to heaven. And the Lord was provoked at this, and at all the works of the cities of Sodom, for they had abundance of food, and had tranquility amongst them, and still would not sustain the poor and the needy. And in those days their evil doings and sins became great before the Lord. So, yes, the woman was covered in honey, so bees, of course, would be attracted to her and sting her to death. So along the other torturous things that the Sodomites did to travelers and the poor, especially considering their abundance and luxury, God was able to find his reason for destroying the cities. I mean, hello? Wake up! Again, I'm not sure if this clarifies enough why we argue that the reason for God's wrath wasn't with homosexuality. Sure, it was a component, but there is an undebatable difference between the foundations behind the evil types of assault that the people of Sodom and Gomorrah were committing, and the expressions of love that the LGBTQ plus community consensually participate in today. And for those who don't think there is a difference, I don't know what else to tell you, other than you're wrong. And hopefully one day you decide to take off the blinders from those little eyeballs you got. I hope you wear them to see the genuinity of queer love in our modern world. Anyways, I hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Good Fruit Podcast. My name's Gracie. That was Marissa and Carrington talking before you saw me. I hope you like my little outro. Hopefully we can do this again sometime. But until then, keep slaying the day away.